The warning the twin suns of Kepler 442 cast their golden light across the rolling hills of New Terra colony, where human children played alongside young aliens in the communal gardens. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub, watching her people live in harmony with 7 different species that called this world home. New Terra represented everything humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. The colony of 12,000 humans had built something beautiful here over the past 15 years. Streets lined with flowering trees led to markets where human merchants traded with tall, graceful Etherians and stocky, practical Corvan engineers. Schools taught human children alongside young Zephyrians who could phase through solid matter and curious Mentari whose large eyes held ancient wisdom. Elena had been colony commander for 8 years, ever since retiring from the human defense corps. She had seen war among the stars, fought pirates and raiders, but here on New Terra, she had found peace. The colony thrived because it was built on mutual respect and cooperation. Every species contributed their unique abilities to make life better for all. Dr. Marcus Chun emerged from the medical center below, his twin 6-year-old daughters, Emma and Sarah, skipping beside him. The girls had been born on New Terra and knew no other life than this peaceful coexistence. Emma waved at a group of young Corvan who were teaching human children how to work with crystalline technology. Sarah was deep in conversation with a Mentari child about the mathematics of hyperspace travel. Elena smiled as she watched them. These children represented the future of galactic civilization. They would grow up without the prejudices and fears that had plagued earlier generations. They would be the bridge between species, the proof that cooperation was stronger than conflict. The tranquil afternoon was shattered by the arrival of ships on the horizon. Elena's trained eye immediately recognized the configuration as hostile. The vessels were massive, black as space itself, with angular designs that spoke of a species that valued intimidation over aesthetics. They moved in perfect formation, their engines leaving trails of sickly green energy across the sky. Elena activated her communication device. All department heads to the command center immediately. We have visitors. Her voice remained calm, despite the ice forming in her stomach. In her military career, she had learned to recognize trouble by the way it moved. These ships moved like predators circling prey. Within minutes, the colony's leadership had assembled. Dr. Chun arrived with concern etched on his face, having seen the ships from the medical center. Chief Engineer Sarah Walsh, a human who had married a Corvan and adopted their methodical approach to problem-solving, brought technical scans of the approaching vessels. Ambassador Teva, an Etherian who served as the colony's diplomatic liaison, floated into the room with her usual grace, but Elena could see tension in her luminous form. The ships belonged to the Hive Collective, Tevala reported, her voice carrying the musical quality of her species. I have had limited contact with them during my diplomatic career. They are an insectoid species that values expansion and resource acquisition above all else. They are not known for peaceful negotiations. Elena studied the tactical display. 27 ships, all heavily armed. The Hive Collective had come in force. What do we know about their intentions? They are requesting permission to land. Diplomatic party, came the response from the communications officer. They claimed to have important matters to discuss regarding this star system. Elena's military instincts were screaming warnings. Species that traveled in armed fleets rarely came for friendly conversations. Grant them permission to land 3 vessels in the diplomatic landing area. Standard protocols for potentially hostile contacts. All non-essential personnel should remain indoors until we understand their intentions. The Hive ships that landed were even more intimidating up close. They squatted on the landing pad like giant insects, their black surfaces absorbing light and radiating menace. The beings that emerged matched their vessels in unsettling appearance. They stood 8 feet tall on 4 legs, their bodies covered in chitinous armor that gleamed with an oily sheen. Multiple arms ended in sharp, claw-like appendages, and their heads featured compound eyes that seemed to take in everything simultaneously. The leader wore additional armor, plates marked with symbols that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, its voice emerged from a translator device that rendered its words in harsh, mechanical tones. I am Ambassador Zixith of the Hive Collective. I come to discuss the future of this world with its current occupants. Elena stepped forward, flanked by her senior staff. She had dressed in her formal commander's uniform, complete with the medals and insignia that marked her as a veteran of interstellar conflicts. Sometimes display of military credentials could prevent conflicts before they started. I am Commander Elena Vasquez, leader of New Terra Colony. We welcome diplomatic contact with the Hive Collective. How can we be of assistance? Zixith's compound eyes fixed on Elena with an intensity that made her skin crawl. You can assist by understanding that this world falls within territory claimed by the Hive Collective. We require its resources for our expansion. You will be relocated to a world more suitable for your limited needs. The diplomatic meeting hall fell silent. Elena felt the familiar cold focus that had served her well in combat situations. Behind the alien's polite words lay a threat as clear as starlight. Ambassador Zixith, Elena replied carefully. New Terra Colony has been established here for 15 years under the authority of the Galactic Settlement Commission. Our claim to this world is legally recognized by 47 member species of the Galactic Council. I'm afraid there has been some mistake. There is no mistake, Zixith replied, its mechanical voice carrying no emotion. The Hive Collective does not recognize the authority of the Galactic Council. We take what we require for our expansion. Legal documents are meaningless to us. Dr. Chun stepped forward, his medical training making him naturally inclined to seek peaceful solutions. Surely we can find a compromise. New Terra is a large world with vast unpopulated areas. Perhaps we could establish separate territories. Zixith turned its attention to the doctor, and Elena saw something in the alien's posture that made every instinct scream danger. Dr. Chun, is it not? We have observed your colony extensively. You have offspring here? Small ones. Marcus Chun's face went pale. My daughters have nothing to do with territorial disputes. Everything has to do with our requirements, Zixith replied. The Hive understands that humans form emotional attachments to their offspring. This weakness can be useful in negotiations. Perhaps if certain inconvenient attachments were removed, you would be more reasonable about relocation. Elena felt something shift inside her chest, a cold fire that she had not experienced since her days hunting pirates in the Outer Rim. The alien had just threatened human children. In her years of military service, she had seen species make many mistakes, but threatening the young was a line that should never be crossed. Ambassador, Elena said, her voice dropping to a tone that made hardened soldiers take notice. I want to make sure I understand what you just said. Are you suggesting that you would harm human children to force our compliance? I am stating that the Hive will use whatever methods are necessary to achieve our objectives, Zixith replied. Your emotional weakness regarding offspring is well documented. It can be exploited if required. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena could hear her own heartbeat, steady and calm, despite the fury building inside her. She had faced down pirate fleets and enemy armadas, but she had never felt the particular kind of cold rage that now filled her completely. Ambassador. Zixith, Elena said, her voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who had commanded warships in battle. I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a warning. She stepped closer to the towering alien, close enough that its compound eyes had to adjust to focus on her face. If any member of the Hive collective so much as frightens a human child on this world, you will discover why humans have earned respect throughout this galaxy. If you harm a human child, you will learn what human repercussions truly mean. Your species is small and weak, Zixith replied, but Alana noticed a slight shift in its posture. You have no significant military presence in this sector. Your threats are meaningless. Elena smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You've done your research on human emotional attachments to our children. That's good. But you've made a critical error in your analysis. You see that attachment as weakness. Let me explain why you're wrong. She gestured to the window where the colony spread out below them, human and alien children playing together in the fading light of the twin suns. Every human you see down there would die to protect those children. Every human in this sector would abandon everything they own to keep them safe. Every human ship captain would change course in the middle of a trading run to answer a distress call involving threatened children. Elena's voice never rose above conversational level, but each word carried the weight of absolute certainty. We don't see our protective instincts as weakness, Ambassador. We see them as the defining strength of our species. And when you threaten our children, you're not just threatening this colony. You're threatening every human in the galaxy. And we do not forgive that. Ever. Zixith's translator device emitted a sound that might have been laughter. Your colony has perhaps 50 armed security personnel. We have brought sufficient force to level your settlement from orbit if necessary. Your warnings mean nothing. Then you haven't been paying attention, Elena replied calmly. This isn't about the security forces of one colony. This is about what happens when you cross a line that no civilized species should cross. Touch a human child, and you won't just face new Terra colony. You'll face humanity itself. The alien delegation exchanged communications in their own language, a series of clicking and buzzing sounds that their translators didn't attempt to render. Elena could see uncertainty in their body language. They had expected fear, submission, or desperate bargaining. They had not expected calm, absolute certainty. We will consider your words, Zixith finally said, but understand that the Hive collective will have this world, with or without your cooperation. And you understand our position, Elena replied. You are welcome to attempt to take this world through legitimate means. Challenge our legal claim through the Galactic Council. Offer to purchase our settlement rights. Propose resource-sharing agreements. But the moment you threaten our children, everything changes. The alien delegation withdrew to their ships, leaving the colony leadership in the conference room. Dr. Chun was pale and shaking, thinking about his daughters playing outside. Ambassador Tevalai's luminous form flickered. With agitation, Chief Engineer Walsh was already calculating defensive positions and evacuation routes. Elena, Marcus said quietly, do you really think they'll listen to your warning? Elena looked out at the colony where human and alien children were being called inside by worried parents. The peaceful life they had built here was under threat, and she felt the familiar weight of command responsibility settling on her shoulders. No, she said simply. I don't think they will. The Hive collective has grown used to other species yielding to their threats. They mistake cooperation for weakness and diplomacy for cowardice. They're going to test our resolve. What do we do? Sarah Walsh asked. Elena activated her command terminal and began composing a message. We send word to every human settlement, every human ship, every human military installation within 50 light years. We tell them that the Hive collective has threatened human children on New Terra. Then we prepare for the consequences. What consequences? Tivala asked. Elena's fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, sending out a priority. Alpha communication that would reach human vessels and colonies across the sector. The Hive is about to learn something that pirate fleets and raider clans have discovered over the centuries. When you threaten human children, you don't just anger the humans directly involved. You wake up something that has been sleeping in, the depths of human nature. She finished the message and sent it racing across the communication networks at faster-than-light speeds. Within hours, every human in the sector would know that the Hive Collective had threatened children on New Terra. The response would be swift and overwhelming. They think our love for our children makes us weak, Elena continued. Watching the status lights on her communication array confirmed that the message was being received and retransmitted by stations across human space. They're about to discover that it makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Outside, the Hive ships lifted off from the diplomatic landing area, but Elena could see them taking positions in orbit around New Terra. They were preparing for occupation, confident that the humans would yield rather than risk harm to their young ones. Elena looked at the photographs on her desk, showing colony children at play, human and alien together in perfect harmony. The Hive Collective was about to learn that threatening that harmony would cost them everything. The warning had been given. Soon, the galaxy would see what human repercussions really meant. The reckoning. 3 days past intense standoff. The Hive Collective ships maintained their orbital positions while conducting what they called resource surveys of New Terra. Colony. Elena knew they were actually mapping defensive positions and identifying key targets. The aliens were preparing for occupation, still believing that humans would ultimately surrender rather than risk their end. Children. Dr. Marcus Chon tried to maintain normal routines for his daughters, but the strain was showing. Emma and Sarah asked why they couldn't play outside anymore, why the other alien children had been taken to their family ships, why Daddy looked so worried all the time. Marcus did his best to explain without frightening them, but 6-year-olds were perceptive enough to sense that something was very wrong. On the morning of the 4th day, everything changed. Emma Chun was in the colony's central garden with her class, participating in what should have been a routine botanical lesson. Their teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, was showing them how different species of plants had adapted to New Terra's unique soil conditions. The garden was considered safe because it was in the heart of the colony, surrounded by buildings and defensive positions. The attack came without warning. 3 Hive shuttles dropped from orbit using stealth technology that masked their approach. Until the last moment, they landed in the garden with a thunder of engines and displaced air. Armed Hive soldiers poured out, their insectoid forms moving with terrifying speed and coordination. Mrs. Rodriguez tried to shield her students, shouting for them to run, but the Hive soldiers had planned their operation carefully. They had studied human behavior and knew that adults would prioritize protecting children over their own safety. They used this knowledge as a weapon. Target acquired, Zix announced as his soldiers surrounded the terrified group. His compound eyes fixed on Emma Chun, recognizing her from surveillance footage of the colony's leadership. The offspring of the medical officer. Perfect. Emma didn't cry or scream as the alien soldiers approached. Instead, she looked up at Zix with the fearless curiosity that marked human children. "You're the mean one who threatened us," she said in her clear, young voice. "My daddy said you made a big mistake." "Your daddy is not here, small human," Zix replied through his translator. "And mistakes are made by those who resist the inevitable." But Emma Chun smiled. Expression that somehow looked exactly like her father's confident grin. "That's what you think. But you don't understand about humans and children. My commander Elena told my daddy that help is coming. Lots and lots of help." Zixith felt something unsettling at the child's absolute confidence, but he dismissed it as typical human delusion. He signaled his soldiers to secure the girl and return to the shuttles. The other children and the teacher would be left behind as witnesses to carry the message to the colony leadership. As the Hive shuttles lifted off with Emma Chun aboard, Mrs. Rodriguez activated the emergency beacon that every teacher carried. Within seconds, alarms were sounding throughout the colony. Dr. Chun's scream of anguish could be heard across the medical center as he learned that his daughter had been taken. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center, watching the shuttles dock with the Hive command ship in orbit. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were steady as she activated the colony's most powerful transmitter. Priority Alpha emergency, she broadcast on all human frequencies. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of New Terra Colony. The Hive Collective has taken a human child hostage. 6-year-old Emma Chun has been captured by hostile aliens. All human vessels, all human commands, all human forces, a human child is in enemy hands. I repeat, they have taken one of our children. The message raced across space at faster-than-light speeds, reaching human settlements, trading posts, and military installations across the sector. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the cargo hauler Steady Prophet was delivering supplies to a mining station when the message reached her ship. She immediately changed course toward New Terra, broadcasting her own message. This is Captain Mitchell aboard Steady Prophet. We're armed with mining charges and industrial cutters. Not much, but we're coming. Admiral James Park was conducting routine patrol exercises with the 7th Fleet when the emergency transmission arrived. He didn't hesitate for even a moment. All ships, new heading for New Terra Colony, maximum burn. Fleet dispersal pattern 7. We're going to war. The response spread like fire through dry grass. Human merchants abandoned profitable trading runs. Human explorers turned back from deep space missions. Human military units requested emergency deployment authorization. Even human civilians with personal spacecraft began making preparations to join what was rapidly becoming the largest human fleet ever assembled. But the response wasn't limited to humans alone. The message reached other species who had come to know and respect humanity's protective nature toward their young. Captain Scar of the Corvin Defense Corps had served alongside human forces during the pirate wars. He knew what humans were capable of when their children were threatened. All ships of the Corvin 3rd Squadron, we are joining the human fleet. When they fought beside us against the raiders, they protected our young as fiercely as their own. Now we return that loyalty. The Etherian Council voted unanimously to contribute their fastest ships to the rescue mission. Ambassador Thaler transmitted their decision. The humans have shown us what it means to value all children, regardless of species. We will not abandon them when their own child needs help. Even species that had no formal alliance with humanity began offering support. The crystalline Zephyrians, who rarely involved themselves in biological species conflicts, sent a battle group. The ancient Mentari, who valued wisdom above warfare, provided intelligence about Hive collective weaknesses. Aboard the Hive command ship, Zixth studied the growing fleet assembling around New Terra with increasing unease. What had begun as a few dozen human ships had grown to hundreds, then thousands. Military vessels, cargo haulers, passenger liners, even small personal craft were converging on the system. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we now detect over 3,000 vessels in the system. The majority are human, but we're seeing ships from 17 different species. Zixth clicked his mandibles in agitation. This was far beyond what Hive intelligence had predicted. Taking one human child was supposed to break the colony's resistance, not unite the entire sector against them. In the ship's detention area, Emma Chun sat calmly in her cell, completely unafraid. When Hive guards looked in on her, they found her humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. She seemed to be waiting for something, and her confidence was unnerving even to hardened warriors. "Why are you not afraid, small human?" one guard asked. Through the translator dot, Emma looked up at the towering insectoid with eyes that held no fear at all. "Because I know my daddy is coming, and Commander Elena, and probably lots of other people too. My daddy says that when you hurt human children, every human in the galaxy becomes your enemy. You're going to find out if that's true." The guard retreated, disturbed by the child's absolute certainty. Throughout the ship, similar unease was spreading among the Hive forces. They had expected terror and despair from their hostage. Instead, they faced a 6-year-old who seemed to pity them for the mistake they had made. On New Terra's surface, Dr. Chun stood in the command center, watching the tactical display fill with friendly contacts. Ships were still arriving, and Admiral Park's 7th Fleet was only hours away. The largest gathering of human military force in the sector's history was assembling to rescue his daughter. "Elena," he said quietly, "when you warned them about human repercussions, did you expect this?" Elena studied the display showing over. 4,000 ships now surrounding New Terra. It was an overwhelming force, far beyond anything she had imagined when she sent out the distress call. "I knew humans would respond," she said. "But this is more than a rescue mission. This is humanity making a statement to the galaxy." Admiral Park's flagship, the HMS Determination, took position at the center of the human formation. Park was a veteran of the Centauri conflicts and the border wars, but he had never commanded a fleet this size. More importantly, he had never led a mission where the stakes were so clear and absolute. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he broadcast. "To the massive fleet. We have one objective, the safe return of Emma Chun. Everything else is secondary. The Hive Collective has one opportunity to return the child unharmed. If they refuse, we will take her back by force." The transmission was sent to the Hive command ship on all frequencies. Zix read the ultimatum with growing desperation. His force of 30 ships faced an armada that now numbered in the thousands. The humans had not only called his bluff, they had raised the stakes beyond anything he could match. "Send a response," Zixith ordered. "Tell them that the child will be returned in exchange for the immediate evacuation of the colony. All humans must leave New Terra within 1 standard day." Admiral Park's reply came within minutes. Negative. Return the child unconditionally or face the consequences. You have 30 minutes to comply. Zixith realized with growing horror that he had made a catastrophic miscalculation. The Hive Collective had built their expansion on the assumption that other species would yield rather than fight. They had never encountered a species where threatening children would unite every member in implacable fury. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving transmissions from the fleet. They're not just demands for the child's return. Some of these ships are broadcasting their individual reasons for being here." The messages painted a picture of humanity that Hive intelligence had completely failed to understand. "This is Captain Torres, aboard the merchant vessel, New Dawn. My own daughter was saved by human medics during the plague of Rigel. I owe them this debt. This is Major Williams of the Colonial Marines. I've seen what humans do when their children are threatened. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. This is Captain Singh aboard the exploration ship Far Horizon. I've got kids of my own back on Earth. This could be any of our children." Zixith began to understand that he was not facing a military response to a tactical situation. He was facing the full fury of a species whose defining characteristic was their willingness to sacrifice everything for their young. The 30-minute deadline approached. Emma Chun remained calm in her cell, still humming her lullaby. She had asked her guards for paper and crayons and was drawing pictures of her father and sister. When asked why she wasn't afraid, she simply said, "Because they're coming. All of them." With 5 minutes remaining, Zixith made his decision. The Hive Collective was powerful, but they were not suicidal. Facing the combined might of humanity and their allies over one human child was not a battle they could win. "Return the child to the surface," he ordered, immediately. Emma Chun was transported down to New Terra in a Hive shuttle delivered safely to the colony's landing pad, where her father waited with tears streaming down his face. She ran into his arms as if she had never doubted that this moment would come. "I knew you'd come for me, Daddy," she said simply. Dr. Chun held his daughter close, overwhelmed by relief and the knowledge that thousands of humans had abandoned everything they were doing to save his little girl. Around them, the massive human fleet maintained its positions, ready to fight if the situation changed. Admiral Park sent one final transmission to the Hive command ship. "A child has been returned safely. You will now leave this system and never return. Any Hive vessel detected in human space in the future will be destroyed without warning." The Hive fleet withdrew from New Terra that same day. Zixith's final report to his superiors contained a recommendation that would reshape Hive collective policy for generations. Human children are absolutely forbidden targets. The species will mobilize their entire civilization to protect a single offspring. This is not weakness, it is their greatest strength. As the alien threat departed, the massive human fleet began to disperse. Ships returned to their interrupted missions, their crews satisfied that they had sent an unmistakable message to the galaxy. But many stayed long enough to visit the colony, to meet the little girl whose capture had united them in common. Cause. Emma Chun became something of a legend in the sector. The child whose rescue had demonstrated humanity's most defining characteristic, that they would cross any distance, face any enemy, and pay any price to protect their young. Years later, when Emma was grown and serving as a diplomat herself, she would meet representatives from species across the galaxy. Many would tell her the same thing. They had heard the story of New Terra, of the human child whose capture had awakened the fury of an entire species. It had taught them to respect not just human military might, but human love. Commander Elena Vasquez kept a photograph on her desk showing Emma Chun playing in the colony gardens, surrounded by human and alien children living in harmony. It reminded her daily of why humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or intimidation, but through their absolute commitment to protecting the innocent and defending those who could not defend themselves. The warning had been given, tested, and proven true. Throughout the galaxy, the lesson was clear. Humanity's love for their children was not a weakness to be exploited, but a strength that made them the most formidable species among the stars. And in the peaceful gardens of New Terra colony, human and alien children continued to play together, safe in the knowledge that they were protected by something more powerful than any weapon or warship, the unbreakable bond between human adults and their young. Asterisk.